A time together like this. We thank you for your children who love one another and love you and love our church. We pray that you'll just take each of us and make of us someone who will become even larger in your kingdom's work in every way. We pray for our pastor now and his family as his young son undergoes an operation in the morning. Watch over and care for them and bring healing to his young body. We anxiously await them as they move here and settle in and lead our church. Give to him your grace, your leadership, your spirit in such ways that there will be new days in all our lives as we serve you better. Bless each one here. Watch over and care for us. Thank you for your care every moment of our lives. May we acknowledge who we are because of you and what we are because of Jesus in our hearts, in whose name we ask it. Amen. Amen. All right, over in the book of John, the 12th chapter, and the first 8 verses of that book of John. John 12 and 1. It says, Then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served. But Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Then saith one of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and had the bag, and bore what was put therein. The kind of loving we have is important today. The term love has been tossed around to the point where we no longer understand it. Love is a term, you know, I love the weather. You know, I love everything. Pick a spot. Pick somebody. Pick something. I love the color. I don't love the color or whatever. But Jesus did a different kind of thing. I don't know how many times I have been in churches over a period of time where somebody has come along and said, I don't know why we spend so much money on buildings or air conditioning a building or take your pick, whatever it is that people do in building churches and growing churches. Don't know why we spend so much money when we could take that money and maybe give it to the poor and help them out. And I heard a story one time about that happening, and the pastor quietly said, I've heard that before. And the guy said, by whom? And then he said, Judas Iscariot. Have you ever thought of it? Mary did something different. Out of a heart full of love. Completely full of love. Judas talked about what could have been done, but had no love in the thought at all. His thought was, if that money had been put in the pot here for the disciples' expenses, I could have had a little bit more of it. And that was the whole meaning behind it. All of this going down the line. But the principle is simply that that somehow or other love has behind it. The thing that makes it great, motive. What is the motive behind all of the love that's there? What is that thing that really sets it apart? What makes it tick? What is it that really causes people to do something? Judas said to the others, that city woman, something like that. Why did she do that? And she did it because she had an overwhelming sense of love at that particular point in her time, doing that thing that she needed to do. It seems sometimes that for every good thing that somebody does, there's always somebody else who comes along and has a murmur about that thing. Another idea about what it could have been or maybe should have been. But if we take our choice in looking at these different kinds of love, we suddenly realize that behind love is a motive. For example, if a mother is entertaining a guest in her home and her little 5-year-old rushes in with a handful of ragweeds, with draggle ragweeds at that, and says, "Oh, Mommy, look at the pretty flowers I just picked for you." Do you think the mother brushes those things aside and says, "Get out of here with those old weeds"? No, that's not how it works, is it? That mother usually stops what she's doing and goes and finds a jar or a vase, puts water in it and puts those in there and says, "Honey, I really do appreciate and love you for the flowers that you brought me." Because of the motive behind the gift. The love that was there and all the things that were there expressed. And so this kind of thing happens more than you think. It's not so much the deed that we do that counts, folks. In this love, even the simplest deed given through an overwhelming kind of love is probably one of the best things that you could ever do, depending on all the things that we look at every day. Well, this kind of thing is what Jesus was talking about over and over and over. The finest deed done with no love really loses its impetus. The simplest thing done with a heart full of trust and love is an earth-shaking experience in so many, many different kinds of ways. The deed itself is glorious only when you look at the thing that is pushing it, the motive behind it all. Jesus saw that thing. Mary was over there cooking. Martha was over there cooking. Mary was worshiping. Judas was griping. And Mary was simply loving. She didn't cook. Well, I'll not say that. In retrospect, we don't know. She probably was a good cook too, but at that point she was not cooking. But she was doing the best thing that she knew to do, out of the best motive that could ever be. And all of that is part of what we ought to think about. Unfortunately, and you know this as well as I know it because we live through it from time to time. I've pastored a church or two through the years, and so many times I find that somebody that's unhappy is unhappy for a reason. And unfortunately, when I find out the reason, it makes me unhappy. Because the reason usually is somebody did something and nobody recognized them for doing it. Or somebody did something and they didn't get a chance to be on a committee, or they were not asked to teach, or you fill in the blanks, on down the line. All kinds of things go on there. They didn't elect me. They didn't choose me. I was basically ignored. Have you ever heard any of this? Sure you have. And I have to admit that I've been a part of it. From time to time in my life, I've been one of those that said, hey, I don't like that at all. They didn't choose me. Now, there's usually a pretty good reason why they didn't choose me, but I'd never tell, simply because it's none of your business. But the thing about it is, we live in a world that somebody wants to be recognized for what they do. But Jesus said that's not the way Christianity works. What you do, well, let me put it this way. He said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. You know what that says? It says, forget about it. Do the deed. Don't tell anybody. You don't have to spread it out. You see, the one who knows most about you already knows. He is already aware. And the reward is yours anyway. Now, maybe not immediate, and maybe not recognizable in the way that you and I would like for it to be recognizable, but it is there. And we do it, the things we do. We do it because we love Him. When we get away from that, we get away from the thing that makes the church the church. We get away from the thing that makes Christianity what Jesus intended for it to be. Because we're not here to do something and say, hey, look what I did. I'm an avid NBA basketball fan. But I'm going to have to tell you, I get a little bit ticked off when I see all the guys running down the thing and saying, hey, did you see what I just did? Did you see that great shot I just made? And does that ever bother you?
Yeah.
It does me. Probably because I never made a basket in my life. But you see, in the Christian life, we don't throw baskets to have them counted and given to us in accolades. We do it because we love Him and we're serving Him. And that's the motive behind everything that ought to be. Who do I serve? Well, I serve the Lord. The motive behind all of that is my love for the Lord. Not my love for attention or my love for somebody to pat me on the back and say, I like what you do, or whatever. Fill in the blanks, whatever you'd like to say along the line. But somewhere we're going to have to come back and realize that our job is that job of being His, just simply loving Him and doing whatever it is that comes to hand to make the Christian life a better thing, both for us and for those to whom we give it or share it or witness of it to. Nevertheless, on and on it goes.